It was a crisp autumn morning, the kind where the golden leaves danced in the breeze and the world felt at peace. I stood on my porch, coffee in hand, watching my dog chase squirrels across the yard. This home, my home, was my sanctuary. Every brick, every blade of grass held memories, from late-night laughter with friends to the quiet solitude of early mornings. But that peace was about to shatter. The moment I saw the letter in my mailbox, a strange chill ran down my spine. The envelope bore the official stamp of the Homeowners Association, HOA, a group I had barely interacted with beyond the occasional nod at community meetings. I tore it open, scanning the words, my heart hammering faster with each line. Notice: a violation, failure to comply, final warning, property subject to eviction. I blinked, reading it again, my stomach twisting in disbelief. Eviction? From my own home? This had to be a mistake. I paid my mortgage on time, kept my lawn manicured, and followed every rule. Yet, according to this letter, I had violated HOA regulations so severely that they were within their rights to remove me. But what violation? There was no clear explanation, just legal jargon and a demand to vacate within 30 days. A lump formed in my throat. This wasn't just an inconvenience. This was my life being ripped away. I glanced at my home, the place I had built with love, the walls that held my story, and a wave of anger flooded my veins. They thought they could just push me out? No. This wasn't over. Not by a long shot. With the letter clenched in my fist, I took a deep breath. If they wanted a fight, they were about to get one. Hey, real quick, if you're enjoying the video so far, make sure to hit that like button, share it with friends, and subscribe for more awesome content. And while you're at it, drop a comment and let me know where you're watching from. All right, let's keep going. The letter trembled in my hands as I paced my living room, my mind racing. How could they do this? I had lived here for years without a single issue. There had to be some mistake. I grabbed my phone and dialed the HOA office, my fingers tense against the screen. After a few rings, a clipped monotone voice answered. Greenwood Estates, HOA. This is Linda speaking. I took a deep breath, forcing calm into my voice. Yeah, hi. I just received a notice saying I'm being evicted. There has to be some mistake. There was a pause, a few keyboard clicks. Then Linda spoke again, her voice indifferent, almost bored. Let me check your file. Ah, yes. Your property has been found in violation of multiple HOA regulations. My stomach knotted. What violations? She cleared her throat. Unauthorized modifications to your property. Failure to maintain aesthetic standards and non-compliance with HOA guidelines. I frowned. Unauthorized modifications? I haven't done anything. And failure to maintain aesthetic standards? My lawn is pristine. Another pause. It says here that your front door is the wrong shade of blue, and your fence is 3 inches too high. I blinked. You're evicting me. Over paint and a fence? Rules are rules, she said flatly. I felt my blood pressure spike. This wasn't just about arbitrary rules. This was a power move. They wanted me out. But why? I scoured my documents, searching for any clause that justified this level of punishment. Nothing. HOA fines? Sure. A warning? Maybe. But eviction? That was extreme. It didn't add up. I spoke to a few neighbors, hoping someone had faced something similar, and that's when I found the first crack in the HOA's story. Mrs. Thompson, an elderly woman 2 houses down, shook her head. They pulled the same nonsense on my friend a few streets over, kept fining her for ridiculous things, until she finally sold her house and left. A cold realization settled over me. This wasn't about rules. This was about control. I clenched my fists. If they thought I would roll over and let them win, they were dead wrong. The more I thought about it, the clearer it became. This wasn't just about my door color or a fence. Something deeper was at play. I spent the next few days combing through community forums, Facebook groups, and old HOA meeting minutes. The deeper I dug, the uglier things got. Story after story emerged. Homeowners who had been fined into financial ruin, forced to sell their homes over nonsense violations. Some had been accused of infractions that didn't even exist. Their appeals ignored until they finally gave up and left. Then I found something that made my skin crawl. A list of recent home sales in the neighborhood. Every single house that had been forced into a sale in the last 3 years had been bought by the same 2 real estate investors, both of whom had direct ties to the HOA president, Richard Langley. I leaned back in my chair, my heart pounding. This was a setup. They were systematically forcing people out, scooping up the properties for cheap, and flipping them for a profit. I needed help. That's when I remembered Tom Reynolds, a former HOA board member who had resigned years ago under mysterious circumstances. I managed to track him down through a mutual acquaintance, and when I explained what I had found, he let out a bitter laugh. "So they're still at it, huh?" His voice was laced with resentment. "I tried to fight them once, thought I could stop them. But they control everything. Rules, fines, even the damn elections. The second I pushed back, they came for me. Forced me out." A pit formed in my stomach. Why hasn't anyone done anything? Because they make sure no one can. They have the money, the lawyers, and the power. Unless you have proof, solid proof, no one will listen. That night, I couldn't sleep. I stared at the ceiling, anger twisting in my chest. They had bullied, threatened, and stolen from good people for years. And now, they had come for me. I wasn't just fighting for my home anymore. I was fighting for everyone they had wronged. It was time to turn the tables. If the HOA wanted a war, they were about to get one. But I wasn't going to fight on their terms. I was going to outthink them. I spent the next week gathering everything I could: emails, meeting minutes, and testimonies from neighbors who had faced the same harassment. Some were too afraid to talk, but a few, like Mrs. Thompson, were more than ready to take a stand. They fined me for my lawn being overgrown when it was freshly mowed, she said, shaking her head. But Richard Langley? His backyard looks like a jungle, and no one says a thing. That sparked an idea. I took my phone and started documenting every HOA board member's house. The results were almost laughable. Richard Langley's fence? A full foot taller than mine. Linda, the HOA secretary? She had a bright red front door while mine was apparently too blue. Another member had a driveway extension that wasn't even approved. Hypocrisy. Blatant, undeniable hypocrisy. Armed with this evidence, I turned to my last hope. A local attorney named Daniel Carter, known for taking on corrupt HOA cases. When I laid everything out, he gave me a slow nod. "You've got them. But we need to hit them where it hurts." He drafted a legal counterclaim, citing selective enforcement, abuse of power, and potential fraud. More importantly, we demanded full financial transparency from the HOA, something they had never provided to homeowners. Then we set the trap. At the next HOA meeting, I walked in calm, collected, and holding a thick folder of evidence. The room fell silent. I could see the discomfort in their eyes. Richard Langley leaned back in his chair, smirking. "If you're here to argue, save your breath. You're in violation. Nothing will change that." I smiled. "Oh, I think it will." One by one, I laid out the violations they had committed, the fences, the doors, the backyard disasters. Then, I hit them with the financial inconsistencies. "Where's the money going, Richard? You've fined half the neighborhood into bankruptcy, but no one's seen the HOA's financial records in years." A murmur spread through the crowd. Homeowners who had stayed silent were now angry. They had been afraid before, but now they saw the truth. Langley's smirk faded. He knew he was cornered. But this wasn't over yet, because the HOA was about to strike back. For a moment I thought I had them. The look on Richard Langley's face at the HOA meeting, the nervous glances exchanged between board members, the whispers in the crowd. They knew they were exposed, but I underestimated them. 2 days later, I woke up to a loud knock on my door. 3 uniformed officers stood on my porch. My stomach twisted as I opened the door, forcing myself to stay calm. "Can I help you, officers?" The lead officer, a middle-aged man with a no-nonsense expression, pulled out a clipboard. "We've received a report that you've been making threats against members of the HOA." My breath caught. "What? That's not true," I said firmly. "Who reported that?" The officer glanced at the clipboard. "An anonymous complaint." "Of course. Cowards." I tried to explain, but I could tell from the way the officers exchanged looks that they weren't here to negotiate. They had a job to do. Whether the accusations were true or not didn't matter. It was my word against the HOAs, and they had power on their side. One officer stepped forward. "We're going to have to ask you to come with us for questioning." I swallowed hard. This was exactly what they wanted. To make me look unstable, dangerous. To make my fight seem personal, irrational. To break me. As I sat in the interrogation room at the station, my mind raced. Was this it? Had I pushed too hard? Would I come back to find an eviction notice taped to my door, my belongings tossed onto the street? Doubt crept in like a slow poison. Maybe I should have just let it go. Maybe fighting back wasn't worth it. But then I thought about Mrs. Thompson, about Tom Reynolds, about all the homeowners before me who had been bullied into silence. No, this wasn't over. When the officers finally let me go, I stepped out into the cold night air, my heart pounding. The fight had just become personal, and I was more determined than ever to win. The night I walked out of the police station, something inside me changed. Fear was no longer an option. They had tried to paint me as the villain, but they had made a fatal mistake. They underestimated just how far I was willing to go for the truth. I drove straight to Daniel Carter, my attorney, and told him everything. The false accusations, the harassment, the anonymous reports that were conveniently timed to shut me up. He listened carefully, his fingers steepled beneath his chin, before exhaling sharply. "They just handed us exactly what we needed." I frowned. "What do you mean?" He turned his laptop toward me, a slow smirk forming. "HOA abuse cases are hard to prove, but when they get too aggressive, when they fabricate police reports, that's when we stop playing defense and go on the attack." The next morning, Daniel filed a lawsuit against the HOA for harassment, defamation, and illegal property threats. But we didn't stop there. We took it to the media. A local news outlet picked up the story first. Then a larger investigative journalist caught wind of it. Within days, social media was on fire. Homeowners from across the country flooded the comments with their own HOA horror stories. And the best part? People in my own neighborhood, the ones who had been too scared to speak before, finally started talking. I got a call from an unknown number. When I answered, the voice on the other end was shaky. I have something you need to see." It was an HOA board member, one of their own. We met in secret that night. He slid a folder across the table, avoiding my gaze. "I can't be involved in this," he whispered. "But you deserve to know the truth." Inside the folder were financial statements, emails, and meeting transcripts. Proof that Richard Langley and a few select board members had been illegally funneling money into their own pockets, hiking up fines, forcing people out, and selling homes to their investor friends for a profit. They weren't just corrupt. They were criminals. And now, they were out of time. The community hall was packed. Homeowners, many of whom had lived in fear of the HOA for years, filled every seat, their eyes flicking between me and the long table where Richard Langley and the remaining board members sat, stone-faced. The air was thick with tension, a storm waiting to break. I stepped forward, my heart pounding, but my voice steady. This was the moment. I placed the stack of documents on the podium and looked out at the crowd. For years, we've been bullied, fined, and threatened by this HOA. But tonight, that ends. A murmur rippled through the audience. Langley scoffed, folding his arms. "This is a waste of time," he said dismissively. "You broke the rules. That's all there is to it." I met his gaze, my next words slicing through the room like a blade. Then explain this. I lifted the financial documents, proof of missing funds, illegal property seizures, and fraudulent fines. Gasps filled the room. The reporters in the back scribbled furiously in their notepads. And here's an email, I continued, where you and your associates discuss how to push certain homeowners out to make room for your investors. Langley's face drained of color. Other board members shifted uncomfortably. A few started whispering, turning against each other. These aren't just HOA violations, I said, stepping closer. This is fraud. This is theft. This is a crime. The silence that followed was deafening. Then, chaos. Homeowners erupted in outrage, shouting demands for Langley's resignation. The HOA lawyer whispered something urgently in his ear, but it was too late. The tide had turned. Langley wasn't in control anymore. The final blow came when a uniformed officer stepped forward. Mr. Langley, we have some questions regarding financial misconduct. The once powerful HOA president stiffened, his jaw tight. For the first time, he looked afraid. As he was escorted out of the building, I turned to face my neighbors, the real homeowners of this community. We took back our homes tonight, I said, voice strong, and we're never letting them take them from us again. The room erupted in applause. Justice had finally been served. In the days following the HOA's downfall, everything changed. Richard Langley resigned in disgrace, facing multiple lawsuits and a criminal investigation. Several board members scrambled to distance themselves, but the damage was done. Their reign of intimidation was over. The homeowners, many of whom had once been too afraid to speak, stood together for the first time. At the next community meeting, we voted to dismantle the corrupt HOA leadership, replacing it with a fair and transparent system. No more hidden fees, no more selective enforcement, no more fear. As for me, I kept my home. After months of sleepless nights and endless battles, I stood on my porch, coffee in hand, watching the sunrise over the neighborhood I had fought so hard to protect. It wasn't just about my house anymore. It was about standing up to injustice. One by one, neighbors stopped by to thank me. "We never thought we could fight back," Mrs. Thompson said, tears in her eyes. "But you proved we could." And that was the real victory. This fight wasn't just about one corrupt HOA. It was about homeowners everywhere who had been bullied into silence. If there's one lesson to take from this, it's this. Never let fear take your home. Stand your ground. Because sometimes the only way to beat the system is to expose it. As I closed my front door, I smiled to myself. They tried to take my home. Instead, I took back my community. If you enjoyed this video, please hit the like button, share it with friends, and subscribe for more awesome content. Don't forget to tap the bell icon to stay updated. And let me know in the comments, where are you watching from? Your support means the world.